Hey everyone, you know how sometimes it feels like the world of tech just throws too much at you all at once?
Yeah,
It's like, how do you even keep up?
totally.
Well, that's what we're here for. We help you sort through it all. Today's deep dive,
Hmm.
we're going behind the scenes
Oh, cool.
with two big-time venture capitalists from A16's Andreessen Horowitz.
Ah, yeah, I've heard of them. They're like really influential, right?
Huge. And they had this conversation about how this last election, like, totally flipped the script for tech startups.
What do you mean?
We're talking about the future of crypto,
Yeah.
AI, everything. And get this,
What?
we're going to learn why the Amish came out in droves to vote in this election.
Really?
Yeah. And you're not going to believe this, but apparently the U.S. government almost went all in on nuclear power back in the 70s.
I never knew that.
Wild, right?
It is.
So our source material today is this really insightful conversation between these two A16s guys. You can find it on their YouTube channel. And they're calling the years leading up to the 2024 election, get this, a dark age for tech.
A dark age. Whoa, that's intense. Why?
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, what was so bad?
Well, they're arguing that the previous administration, the way they went about regulating tech, especially like fintech and crypto,
Yeah.
it was just super hostile.
In what way?
They were basically treating American companies like
Like what?
they were enemies.
Really?
Yeah. The A16s guys, they actually compare the tactics to like sanctions, the kind you'd use on a foreign adversary.
I see.
So I was curious about like, okay,
Yeah.
what did this actually look like?
Right.
You know, like on the ground.
Yeah, like what were they actually doing?
Right. And one of the things they talk about, and this was scary, was debanking.
Debanking.
Yeah, so basically companies, even ones working on like really innovative projects, super promising stuff,
Right.
they were just getting denied basic banking services.
Like what? They couldn't even get a bank account.
Couldn't get accounts, couldn't get loans, nothing.
Wow, that's cutting them off at the knees.
Exactly. And they were basically getting cut off from, you know, the entire financial system.
I see.
And it wasn't just like the big tech companies feeling the heat. They tell this story, I think it really highlights how bad it got, about this company that was providing small loans.
Small loans.
Yeah, you know, for people in low-income communities, just to help them cover like unexpected expenses, things like that. And even they were targeted.
Wow, so even companies trying to do good to like help people, they got caught in the crossfire.
Absolutely. Which just shows you how far-reaching the impact of these policies really was. And this whole thing, it gets to this concept that they call anarcho-tyranny.
Anarcho-tyranny, what's that?
Yeah, so it's this idea that, like, you've got all these strict rules, regulations for people who are playing by the rules, trying to do things the right way.
Okay.
But then, meanwhile, lawbreakers, they're basically operating freely.
So it's like rules for thee, but not for me.
Exactly. And they illustrate this, it's a wild story, about the Amish.
The Amish.
Yes. Apparently, the Amish were getting targeted for selling raw milk, you know, unpasteurized milk.
Okay.
But meanwhile, in a lot of cities, like major cities, crimes like grand theft auto weren't even really being enforced.
So they're cracking down on the Amish selling milk, but not on people stealing cars.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right.
No, it definitely created this sense of frustration, like unfairness
I bet.
within the tech community.
Yeah.
But then election night 2024 rolls around and everything changes.
Oh, yeah. I remember the energy around that election. What happened?
It was like night and day. The mood just totally shifted. Relief, pure relief.
Same thing.
And the markets reflected that immediately.
Did that.
Big time. The fifth biggest day ever in the stock market, with
Yeah.
crypto markets surging even higher. And the way they describe it, it's like, it was like this boot was taken off their throat.
That's a powerful image.
Right. It was this huge exhale, like, finally, we can breathe again.
Yeah, they could finally move forward. Build.
Exactly. And it's important to remember,
Yeah.
the 16s, they weren't just like watching this political shift from the sidelines.
Oh, so they were involved.
Yeah, they were actively involved, supporting all these pro-tech candidates
Really?
from both parties, by the way,
Okay.
through direct involvement. And they also backed this fair shake super PAC.
Fair shake. Interesting.
Yeah, and their success rate,
Hmm.
pretty impressive. 52 wins and only 6 losses.
Wow, that's a good track record. Shows they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they put their money where their mouth was when it came to, you know, advocating for policies to support innovation.
I see.
And they even share this story, this anecdote about educating a Democratic governor on the situation,
Okay.
which I thought was really interesting because it shows you how this wasn't about like left versus right. It was about, creating an environment where American tech could thrive.
Right. It was a bipartisan issue.
Exactly. So we've got this like backdrop, right? Challenging regulatory environment,
Right.
then this wave of relief and optimism after the election.
Yeah.
And you've got this venture capital firm like A16's that's actively trying to shape the political landscape.
They're really in the thick of it.
They are.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about the new administration.
Okay.
What's their approach to tech? What's their philosophy?
Well, they're big on winning.
Winning.
Yeah. The president, his whole philosophy is like, we have to win.
In what sense?
American leadership in tech. Innovation across all sectors. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crucial because the 20th century, that's when America won technologically, economically, militarily, and they were all connected.
So it's not just about being the best at tech?
No, it's bigger than that. It's about maintaining global leadership overall.
Okay, so the stakes are pretty high.
Very high.
Let's break it down by sector.
Sounds good.
Starting with crypto. What's happening there?
Well, crypto saw a huge surge after the election. Stalled projects were suddenly back on track, and founders felt empowered to start building again. And a big factor in all of this was the bipartisan support for FIT21.
FIT21. Remind me what that is.
Well, FIT21 was a bill aimed at establishing clear regulatory frameworks for crypto. This was a huge departure from the previous administration, which basically just resisted creating any kind of clarity for the industry.
So basically, FIT21 was a big win for the crypto community.
Absolutely massive. It provided a much more stable and predictable environment for innovation. I mean, it passed with overwhelming support in the House, even though the previous administration was threatening to veto it.
Wow, so bipartisan support was strong.
Yeah, really strong.
And it's not just about businesses, right? What about the impact on everyday people, especially those who've been excluded from traditional finance?
That's a great point. One of the most appealing things about crypto is its potential to level the playing field for access to financial systems, especially for communities that traditional institutions have historically marginalized.
So crypto could be a real game changer, both for innovation and for financial inclusion. But what about AI? That's a sector with, a lot of complexities.
Yeah, AI is definitely a more complicated landscape.
What are some of the key challenges?
Well, you've got concerns about potential regulatory capture, fears around AI's future, and just making sure its development and deployment are ethical, responsible,
Right.
And we can't forget about energy. We talked about that energy bottleneck earlier.
Yeah.
That's a real concern, and we need some pretty innovative solutions to meet those growing demands, particularly with AI development, things like portable nuclear power.
Here's where that win mindset comes in, right? Instead of getting bogged down by the precautionary principle, it's about focusing on enabling innovation to actually solve these challenges.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between, responsible development, but also fostering the kind of thinking that leads to breakthroughs.
Now, you mentioned nuclear power.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, that seems to be making a comeback these days.
It is, and it's a really interesting story. Did you know that back in 1971, the U.S. government had this incredibly ambitious plan for nationwide nuclear power and electric vehicles?
Wait, seriously, I had no idea. Tell me more.
Okay, so it was called Project Independence. President Nixon at the time, he had this vision of 1,000 nuclear civilian power plants by the year 2000, a complete transition to electric cars and full energy independence for the U.S.
Wow, that's a bold vision. So what happened?
Well, the newly formed Nuclear Regulatory Commission, they basically just stalled the whole project. They didn't authorize a single new nuclear plant for over 40 years.
So instead of leading the world in clean energy, we end up dependent on fossil fuels, and in some cases, even funding our adversaries through energy purchases.
It's a classic example of how bureaucratic roadblocks and a lack of political will can stifle innovation and even national security.
But now, with this administration's focus on winning, there's all this talk of a nuclear renaissance. Maybe we have another chance.
There's definitely renewed interest, both for the clean energy potential and its strategic importance. It'll be interesting to watch how this plays out.
Okay, so here's where things get really interesting for me. Let's talk about defense.
Okay.
The way wars are fought is changing so rapidly.
It is.
And technology is at the heart of it all.
It is.
Drones, AI-powered systems, autonomous weapons. The U.S. military really needs to adapt fast to stay ahead.
Yeah. And they're facing some challenges, particularly with the procurement process.
Right. They specifically call out the cost-plus model.
Where contractors are paid based on costs plus a percentage markup.
Exactly. And the problem is that incentivizes overspending and delays, rather than innovation and efficiency.
It
It
does.
just seems counterintuitive. The system designed to equip our military is actually hindering its ability to adapt to new technologies.
It is. It's a big problem they're trying to address. And to really illustrate the importance of adapting to new technologies, they tell this great anecdote about a special forces expert who compared the impact of drone technology to the invention of the stirrup.
Now, that's an analogy I won't forget. Explain that one.
So the stirrup, even though it seems simple, completely revolutionized warfare because it allowed cavalry to stand up in their saddles and fire arrows accurately.
Okay.
Total game changer. And drones are doing something similar. They're fundamentally altering the way wars are fought, and that requires a complete rethinking of strategies and tactics.
So it's not just about having the latest tech, it's about understanding how that tech changes the very nature of conflict.
Exactly. And it's about having the systems in place to rapidly develop and deploy that technology. And here's a really concerning fact. The U.S. military actually relies on Chinese drones in some cases.
Wait, really? That's scary.
It is. It creates a huge security risk and highlights the dangers of being technologically dependent on a potential adversary.
That's a stark reminder that we can't just assume we'll always be ahead. We have to actively invest in and support the development of these critical technologies here in the U.S.
We do.
It feels very Cold War-ish, doesn't it?
It does. Like, the U.S. and China are in this race for global dominance, but the battlefield is technology.
And it sounds like the previous administration wasn't exactly helping us win.
No, their approach was much more focused on containment and control, rather than fostering innovation and competition. It was almost like they were more concerned about potential harm than about enabling progress.
Playing defense instead of offense. But it seems like things are shifting under this new administration. There's a real emphasis on winning, on reclaiming American leadership in tech.
Definitely. And that shift in mindset is palpable. You can feel it in the conversations happening in Washington, in the optimism of founders, and in the investment flowing into areas like crypto, AI, and clean energy.
Like a collective exhale, a sense of possibility that was missing before. So it seems like there's been this huge change in the tech world, both in terms of, the political climate and just the overall mood.
Definitely.
But I'm curious,
Yeah?
how does all of this actually trickle down to the average person?
Right.
How is this shift going to affect our everyday lives?
Well, I think for one, it means more opportunities,
Opportunities
like
and
innovation for entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
We're probably going to see a ton of new companies, new products, especially in things like AI, blockchain, clean energy.
Okay.
This could lead to new jobs, economic growth, maybe even solutions to some of the world's biggest problems.
That's exciting to think about. All these potential breakthroughs.
It is exciting.
But we also talked about some big challenges, right?
Leave red.
Navigating tech policy, making sure AI develops ethically,
Right.
solving that energy bottleneck. Those aren't easy things to do.
They're not.
Uh,
And it's going to require a different way of thinking, one that embraces innovation and competition, but also acknowledges the risks.
Yeah.
We need to move away from that precautionary principle.
That just shuts everything down.
Exactly. And be more proactive, more focused on solutions.
So how do we do that? How do we encourage innovation without, sacrificing safety and responsible development?
I think a big part of it is collaboration
Collaboration.
between the government, industry, and academia. We need to create spaces where experts from all these different areas can work together, develop regulations, guidelines, solutions.
So, bring the best minds together, regardless of their background or their politics,
Exactly.
and just focus on finding the best solution.
Exactly. It's not about picking sides. It's about figuring out what works best for everyone. And that takes open dialogue, willingness to listen, and a shared commitment to progress.
That reminds me of something the A16's guys said about being nonpartisan but pro-tech. Recognizing that there are brilliant people with great ideas across the political spectrum.
It's about tapping into that collective intelligence
Yeah,
to navigate this new world, this new tech landscape.
absolutely. So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the values,
Yeah.
the principles that guide its development, making sure tech serves humanity, not the other way around.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And this brings us back to that idea of winning, right? It's not just about being the best at tech. It's about winning the right way, in a way that benefits everyone.
Winning responsibly, ethically, sustainably, that's what real success looks like in this new era.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've talked about how this election changed things for tech,
Yeah.
the challenges ahead, the opportunities,
hmm
and how we need to approach tech policy. What's your biggest takeaway from all of this? What really stuck with you?
For me, it's realizing that technology isn't just some tool. It's a reflection of us,
Of us.
of humanity,
Hmm.
our values, our priorities. The way we develop and use tech, it says a lot about who we are as a society.
That's interesting.
And right now, we're at a turning point. We have this incredible opportunity to shape the future of tech in a way that benefits everyone. But it's going to take a conscious effort.
What do you mean?
We need to be intentional, collaborative, and most importantly, guided by a set of values that put people first. Human well-being and progress, that should be our compass.
It's not just about the gadgets and algorithms then, it's about us, the choices we make, the future we're creating.
Exactly. And that future is being built right now
Hmm.
in labs, boardrooms, government offices, all over the world. And we all have a role to play in making sure it's a future we can all be proud of.
So what's the next step? What can we as individuals do to help create this positive future?
Well, first of all, stay informed, stay engaged, read up on the latest tech developments, understand the policy debates, participate in conversations about the future of tech.
Don't just sit back and let it happen, right? Be an active participant.
Right. Get involved in local tech communities, support organizations that are pushing for responsible tech,
Yeah.
and talk to your elected officials. Let them know what you think.
Use your voice, your vote,
Exactly.
your choices to guide technology in the right direction.
And don't underestimate the power of individual actions. Support companies that are developing ethical, sustainable tech. Choose products and services that match your values. Be mindful of your own digital footprint.
The data you share, the platforms you use, all of that matters.
It all adds up. It all
Yeah.
makes a difference. Because technology isn't some force of nature. It's something we created. We have the power to steer it, to make sure it serves us, our needs, our values, our aspirations.
It's empowering to remember that we're not just along for the ride. We're the ones behind the wheel.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about being a tech expert. It's about being an informed citizen, engaged in shaping the future we want for ourselves and for generations to come.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I have a much better grasp on the tech world now, the challenges, the opportunities, and most importantly, our role in all of this.
It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully it's been as thought-provoking for you as it's been for me.
So, to wrap things up, if technology really is the defining force of our time, what role will you play in shaping its future? Think about it, talk about it, and most importantly, get involved. Because the future isn't something that just happens to us, it's something we build together. It really makes you think,
It does.
it's like how this whole shift away from anarcho-tyranny
Yeah.
back towards, American innovation, how that's going to play out and how it might impact, our everyday lives.
Yeah.
It feels like the U.S. is really at a crossroads,
It does.
facing this, new kind of Cold War with China.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the 20th century saw America win.
Mhm.
Technologically, economically, militarily.
Mhm.
It was all connected, right?
Right.
Like those things all fed into each other.
Yeah.
Do you think that's still true today?
Oh, absolutely. I think it is.
Yeah.
Technological leadership that drives economic strength, which then fuels military might.
It all goes hand in hand.
It's all linked.
And the A-16s, guys, they argue that, the previous administration,
Mhm.
their approach to tech was playing defense.
They're playing defense.
Yeah, it was all about, containment and control
Sure.
rather than actually, fostering innovation.
Yeah, they were scared of it almost.
Yeah, but now it seems like we're shifting gears,
Yeah.
we're going back on offense to reclaim, American leadership in key areas,
Makes sense.
like AI, crypto, clean energy.
Yeah.
And this isn't just some, abstract geopolitical chess game.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
has real-world implications for, everyday folks. Remember that story we talked about?
Which one?
About the company that was offering those small loans
Oh, yeah.
to help people cover those, unexpected expenses?
Right, to get them through a tough time.
Exactly. And they were targeted by regulators, even though they were, serving a genuine need.
Yeah, helping those low-income communities.
Exactly.
Right.
And this debanking thing, it wasn't just them,
No.
It was used against a whole bunch of tech companies,
Oh, wow.
basically cutting them off
From what?
from the financial system.
Couldn't get loans, couldn't get accounts.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like we talked about, sanctions,
Yeah.
the kind you'd use on,
On a foreign adversary.
right. And the impact of that trickled down to individuals,
In what way?
limited access to financial services,
Right.
stifled innovation.
I see.
It was
Yeah.
we were stuck in this cycle of fear and risk aversion.
Trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah, but meanwhile, China, they were forging ahead.
With their own tech agenda.
Right. But then election night 2024.
Oh, yeah.
That seemed to mark
Like a turning point.
a turning point.
What happened?
The market response was just euphoric.
Was it?
Crypto markets surged.
Wow.
Founders were breathing this collective sigh of relief.
Like that the pressure was off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the A16s guys, they describe it as having a boot off the throat.
Wow,
That's how oppressive it felt
yeah.
before the election.
Wow, that's intense.
It's amazing though, right?
What is?
How a shift in the political winds
Yeah.
can completely change the game for an entire industry.
It is. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Exactly. And it's not just about deregulation,
Right.
it's about creating an environment
Yeah.
where entrepreneurs feel empowered.
To take risks.
Yeah, to push boundaries.
Right, to innovate.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But of course, it's not all, sunshine and roses.
No, there are challenges.
There are still major challenges, especially with AI.
Okay.
Ensuring responsible development, preventing regulatory capture, addressing that whole energy bottleneck thing.
Yeah, it's a lot to figure out.
It is.
And that reminds me
Oh.
of Project Independence.
Oh, yeah, from back in the 70s.
President Nixon, he had this vision
Yeah.
of nationwide nuclear power, electric cars, full energy independence.
It was ambitious.
It was-
But it got derailed
He did.
by bureaucracy and fear.
And now here we are
Yeah,
facing similar choices with AI.
exactly. And let's not forget about defense.
Oh,
Things are changing so fast.
they are.
The way wars are fought.
It's all about technology now.
Right. And the A16Z conversation,
Yeah.
they talked about the need for procurement reform.
Like how the military buys stuff.
Yeah, like that whole cost plus model.
Where they just pay based on cost plus a markup.
It incentivizes the wrong things.
It does.
Overspending, delays.
Instead of efficiency and innovation.
And they told that story, remember?
Yeah, about the...
About the special forces expert.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he compared drone technology to...
He grew up.
The stirrup. Which, revolutionized warfare way back when.
It totally changed the game.
And now drones are doing the same thing.
It's wild.
It is.
And the fact that the U.S. military is relying on
On what?
Chinese drones?
Oh, wow. Really?
In some cases, yeah.
It's not good.
It's a huge risk. It just shows here the dangers of depending on other countries for critical tech.
Especially potential adversaries.
Exactly. So you've heard all the arguments.
I have.
You've seen the trends.
Yeah.
You've talked about what the future might hold.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And the big question now is,
Yeah.
what's your role going to be in all of this?
My role.
Yeah. Are you just going to, watch from the sidelines?
As tech changes the world.
Right. Or are you going to be an active participant? Help shape the future you want to see?
That's a good question.
It is.
I don't have to be a tech expert.
No, not at all.
Just stay informed, engaged,
Exactly.
make choices that reflect my values.
Support companies doing good things.
Yeah.
Advocate for the right policies.
It's all about taking action.
It is.
It's our future, after all.
It is. And the future isn't something that just, happens to us.
We have a say.
We do. It's a canvas.
A blank canvas.
And we're the ones who get to paint it.
And the choices we make today, they determine what that painting looks like.
Exactly. So what will your contribution be?